Mheshimiwa Wambugu, what does this say about our place in the East African community? Because when you listen to everyone here, it's like the rest of the East African community believes in ideals we don't, or we believe in ideals they don't. What's our place?
Thank you, Sam. First, there's a saying that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. Listening to Museveni, you get the feeling of a guy who is completely, absolutely corrupted by power. Part of it, you know, there's always this clip of Museveni in, I think, 35 or something years ago, insisting the way he's not going to cling to power. Immediately he got into power, you know? And every time I see that clip, and then I see him now, and you're like, it doesn't matter. One of the best things that we did with our constitution as Kenyans is to give ourselves a term limit. I think even the best person, if you stay in power as long as Museveni has, you start getting the impression that the country belongs to you, the things that happen to that. I mean, the country runs on your whims. When you listen to him, my colleague panelists have commented about how he's thrown institutions in his country under the bus. I mean, he really doesn't care. Mm-hmm. You know, the judiciary said, we don't have these guys. My police officer said, these guys are not here. That is the problem. Me, I had them. I had told them to say these things. Now I've changed my mind. I'm saying I had them. They were in a fridge. I was asked whether I want to stay with them or to give them back, and I decided to give them back. I could have. You get the impression of complete hubris. This is a guy who believes that the rule of law doesn't apply to him. But then I also want to pick up on something Bob Jagi said when they came out. He said he has learned not to take some things for granted. I think it was Bob or Oyo. He said, now, moving forward, there are some things I'll not take for granted. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think that is a lesson also for us. I know Standard is saying Trinity of Terror. And yes, every one of our countries has had excesses of violation of human rights. But let's be very honest. In Kenya, you're not going to see military trucks driving around telling people to go to take themselves to the police or come and get arrested. You also don't get that kind of hubris in our leadership. You know, Museveni is saying, there's nothing you guys can do to me. This is what I am going to do, and there's nothing you can do to me. So in Uganda, it's a hubris of an individual. In TZ, it's a hubris of an institution, the CCM. Mm-hmm. They've decided we don't care. How, you know, even when you're rigging elections, man, you can't rig elections with 98%. I mean, at least when Museveni tries, you know, he gets 60. How do you get 98%? Which country that and you're saying you're having democracy? That is a complete joke. And the fact that they didn't even see the need to pretend, you know, and just play around with those figures. Because by the time you play around with 98%, you can make it 60. Yeah. And then give 10 here, give 20 there. You know, you have the power to do that. That they didn't see the need to do that tells you also the amount of arrogance and power that they believe they have. But for me, I see also the fact that we have in this conversation is a cracks. They are not going to be able to pull this off for too long. I don't think CCM is going to be able to do this in the next election. Museveni, whether he wins the next election or not, he's also now starting to have to explain himself. You know, he couldn't have done this a couple of years back. He has to explain, oh, you know. But then my final word on this one is, you know, even Americans don't go to demonstrate in North Korea. You can't. I mean, there's nothing America is going to do. When you get into North Korea and those guys get you, you're in trouble. There's also a certain, we have to accept that our...
What do you mean by that?
Today, if you walk into North Korea, actually not even North Korea, Uganda, you can't have this conversation on television. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Just this, what we're talking about right now. You'd get shut down, this place would get clamped up, and we'd all be carted off to jail. But America, which is actually, as Trump insists these days, is the most powerful country in the world, they still are not able to protect their people from some demagogues.
And that's why my question. We pride ourselves that we are members, perhaps leaders economically, of this African community.
We can be leaders. We can be leaders economically, but a lot of the times it's not about your economic might. It's about your security and military might. When you see some countries, for example, you can tell there's a certain element of contempt that Uganda has on us. Yes, so we are economically beyond them. But when he says, you know, our intelligence, You know, when Museveni says our intelligence is very good, he's telling us yours is terrible. You know, and there's a statement he made a couple of years ago about our army not being as good as theirs. So we are now, when you get to the point where we are competing on strength, Uganda believes they have the capacity to bully us, and they've done it, Migingo, in other places, and there's nothing we do. So when our citizens go to their country to agitate for rights in their country under their laws, they will get mistreated, and there's nothing we can do about it because we don't have the leverage to force them to give our people back. We have to plead. I saw the letter, the notable that Museveni did. It was pleading. Man, it's been a month. You guys haven't told us anything. What's going on? I'm like, boss, you can feel we are not at the same level in terms. We can't. If this was an American who had been taken by Uganda, they would have given them back in a couple of days. Because there's so many things America can do to you, from sanctions to invasions to everything. We don't have that capacity. And I think as Kenyans also, we are very proud of our capacity and our democratic space, but let's realize that our state doesn't have the capacity to protect us in other countries. We can do it here, but when we go to other countries, whether they want to, maybe they don't even want to protect us in other countries, but even if they wanted to, I don't think they have the capacity to do it.